So my guest today is Lithuanian guitarist, singer, songwriter Algis Fediajevas. I hope I said it right.
Yeah, right, thank you.
And Algis is here in Bratislava. He's on a short tour around different places in Europe. And we were going to play, I think, earlier in the year, but right around the time that everything fell apart. So tonight I'm really excited to finally get a chance to watch you and to play with you. So welcome to Bratislava.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to come back here. It's not first time, but I think this will be the best one. I don't think, I'm sure.
Well, I hope
because
so.
of many reasons.
Yeah. Well, I saw you were here, you've definitely been here before. You performed at, I think it's called 11 Cafe, between the books or something.
A couple of times actually,
Yeah. And, so you can check that out on YouTube. It's a really great performance. So you've been traveling around now for
not for a long time. We left Lithuania on Monday, and yesterday on Thursday we had the first concert in Vienna, today Bratislava, and tomorrow and Sunday 2 concerts in Krakow, and that's all.
Okay. So you couldn't really play much with the situation with the lockdown. How was that time for you? Was it frustration, or did you find it useful? Or?
Actually, first week was very nervous. I listened to very angry music. I was very angry because all the plans, all the dreams started to dissolve. But then when the last thing that I dreamed about, I had to play in England in Leaf Folk Festival in late June. When this event was cancelled, I lost everything, and then I became calm and understood that I need to change plans. And then I started to I'm very grateful to my friends that gave me possibility to spend a lot of time in their summer house. So I spent most of the time there and read many books and played music. So I think this time was really good.
Kind of revitalized.
Yeah, exactly. Especially because after the album release, it was late November. I had some kind of I had no ideas, no musical ideas what to do, because I think I put everything to the album. And I wanted some refreshment. So actually, then the refreshment started early April and May.
Well, that's good. Let's talk about the album. I've got my prize copy here.
Fantastic.
I can't get it on the camera. So tell me, I'm very dyslexic, so I actually can't even read in English. So tell me what the title and what it means.
The title is Pėdsakų ledynė palikus, or not having the footprints left on the ice. It's connected to one song, Footprints on the Ice, Pėdsakai ledynė. And what's the meaning, you want to ask?
Sure.
What's the meaning? Actually, it's not so easy to tell, because that part in the song was kind of playing with words a bit, teasing the listener and the reader, maybe if he reads the text. But somehow it means there is some religious connotation about footprints above the water. But then I made a trick that the water is frozen. And the footprints are not left. So I think it's somehow connected with the idea of unknowability, like some kind of some maybe philosophical skepticism, that you don't know what you're doing here, and what's the purpose and meaning of life. You can't know such things. So it's possible that when I wrote those lines and titled the album, idea was different, but I don't remember what it was. So now this idea comes to my mind, but I don't think it's very opposite to first version.
I think I've heard this from several people, and I've certainly experienced it myself. That this idea that we write songs and we have something in mind, but actually sometimes years later you read the lyrics or you listen to the song and you think, wow, it was actually, this was about something else.
Yeah, exactly,
completely.
exactly, yeah.
So it doesn't really surprise me to hear that, like that you don't necessarily have like a very clear vision. But it's interesting because obviously the lyrics are in your native language, in Lithuanian language. So it's obviously tricky. But one of the things that I found, and I've said this to Phil when I interviewed him, one of the things I found is that the music just connects with me. That it has a universality. It has something that is somehow speaking to your, to your core when you hear it, and it's. I get a sense of movement, but of melancholy, of reflection, but also there's some quite amazing guitar playing. So,
Okay, thank you.
so tell me about like the guitar. Like what you play in a completely unique style. I really never
Thank
heard.
you very much.
Never heard anyone.
I'm
play.
very pleased to hear that. Actually, the style, I started learning guitar from American guys mostly, like Delta blues guys and folk guys like Mississippi John Hurt, Big Bill Brunzi, Robert Johnson. But then I heard, but then I used to listen a lot of psychedelic rock and already some experimental stuff, some free jazz, and it seemed that some kind of pure folk style doesn't suit me perfectly, and started to search for other forms. So then I found John Fahey and Robbie Basho, like American primitive guitar players that used to have compositions that last, for example, 15 minutes, and they can be completely instrumental. So this opened my mind that I can do much more things with guitar, that it's possible, that people think it's possible. So first, but still, I think first two albums were not so unique in that kind of sense, because it was a bit more copy of those musicians that I like. But with this album, what happened? I think a few years ago I started to experiment much more with tones, like with not electronic kind of pedals, but completely mechanic. For example, using different parts of fingers of right hand, where to touch the strings, and also beating them with more power. And then I started to doing such things that I call raping guitar. For example, taking it and almost breaking, because with that you can do very weird sounds that can sound a bit spacey, bit dissonant, and things like that. Yeah, and I started to enjoy that, and seems that I get more and more into that. I think those you can hear some influences that are hidden very somewhere underground in my music. For example, influences from some punk music, especially one Russian punk rock band was extremely influential for me, Гражданская оборона, and some industrial music, even some kind of harsh stuff. Yeah, I like to listen to that, and I feel connected to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, I guess what you would say if I would describe your music, I would describe it as kind of acoustic folk influenced music.
Of course, yeah.
So does it come from like this Lithuanian folk music tradition? No.
There, unfortunately or fortunately, there are no influences, I guess, from Lithuanian music at all. Just because Lithuanian acoustic music scene for me seems extremely boring, and like guitar playing is extremely, it's not important there at all.
Okay.
Guitar is just for just an instrument that helps you to sing, and that's all. So there were no influences from Lithuania, but first and most important influences came from American and British folk
Yeah.
music, also from few Russian guys. So I can name them like Roy Harper, John Fahey, Robbie Basho, Townes Van Zandt, Bert Jansch,
Yeah.
and those blues guys, Mississippi John Hurt, Big Bill Brunzi, and others.
Yeah, I think I'm a huge fan of Bert Jansch in particular, and also Nick Jones, John Martin, Roy Harper, in terms of the guitar, and I can kind of hear those influences in there. But you inflect it with this real uniqueness. And one of the things that I really notice in your songs, and it's interesting that you say Lithuanian music is about singing, accompanying and singing. But in many of your songs, it feels like there is a distinct part of the guitar speaking and the guitar singing and the guitar saying something, and then there is a song part where the voice says something, and that's kind of an unusual mix. But I think it works very, very well. Is that something very intentional? That's how you think about it, or you just write something?
I think that's it just happened, but because I used to listen and still listen a lot of psychedelic and experimental music, where the song structure is not very strict. For example, as Grateful Dead had in live concerts, a song lasts 3 minutes in studio album, and then it lasts 30 minutes on the concert. Yeah, so I think probably you would agree with me that if you listen more you listen to some kind of music, more you get that into yourself. I mean, you start to think different way, think and create also in different way. So it becomes natural, such thing. Yeah. So for me, I think it's just natural to do a song that have many parts and a lot of attention to the guitar. It just happens. No.
One of the things that is completely unique about your playing, and I listen to many players, the only person I can think that does something close to it is Nick Jones. And what it is this buzzing. You make this, you play, but then and it's not a buzz that, like, okay, the frets are out of place, but it's a deliberate buzzed noise or deliberate vibration noise. And how did that kind of come about? Was it an accident that you liked, or?
It's possible that it was an accident. Yeah, actually, after the second album, there was almost 1 year period that I hadn't created any songs. It seems like an empty period, but that was the period when I started to search for new techniques. But I think that technique came by accident. I just tried. And wow, it's interesting. But you can do that by tuning your guitar lower, of course. Then the string is much looser, and hitting the string and then doing something with the neck.
So how many guitars have you destroyed by pulling the neck like this?
Still no guitars.
Still no.
But my main guitar is like there is one guy in Vilnius who is repairing guitars, so I brought him my guitar just to change some parts. So it's already a month while the guitar is there. So probably he found more problems that were caused by playing, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny, people some people I know are very kind of precious with their guitars, but I play in a kind of a rough way as well, and I hit it, and my guitar's got fingernail holes and dents and a big hole in the neck, and so but I think it means that the journey has. The guitar's traveled with you on a journey and it's given you something. So.
Yeah. Like it's like normal human life. Doesn't have to be very sterile.
So tell me about traveling. And one of the things that I noticed in your in the bio and what is often said about is that that you kind of lived a fairly nomadic lifestyle.
Actually, I wouldn't say that now it's like that. Well, maybe sometimes. Well, now I'm here, But actually, at least the beginning of my musical life started with that. Like, first concert was not in Lithuania, first solo. It was in Georgia
Mm-hmm.
because I was hijacking around in Turkey, and then by accident met few guys in Georgia in the mountains that invited me to play the concert there.
Mm-hmm.
And because they heard me playing in the mountains, yeah, I said okay. And then in the same concert, I met Philip from Bratislava, who lives now in Bratislava. He invited me to come to Krakow, and that's how everything started. So from the beginning, I used to play almost the same amount of concerts abroad, like in Lithuania, but also did a lot of hitchhiking, a lot of busking around. Why? Because probably they had some kind of romantic vision of beatniks, of hobos, of guys like that. Because all my biggest influences on folk music, like Roy Harper, for example, did a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought that I must do that.
I see. Yeah.
It's my duty, and I want to do that. But now maybe everything is changed a bit, just a bit. I mean, more traveling, and not like hitchhiking months and almost bumping, but more connected with music, with concerts, more meaningful. I don't know.
You recorded the album in England, right?
Yeah.
And was that with musicians that you knew that you brought with you from Lithuania, or it was just completely
local,
session?
local.
Yeah.
Actually, there is a flutist, so she lives in that town where I recorded, a few kilometers from there. And the sound engineer was local, so he also added a few instruments. Yeah, so we just met. I sent them demos a few weeks before the recording, and they knew after that what to do.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got all this kind of traveling experience and visiting, and you say you're playing in folk festivals in England, or we were going to be playing.
Yeah, I was going to play. Hope next year.
Yeah, well, that would be great, and hopefully some of the festivals will will survive, because I know it's been really very tough for them. And if you would look at when if you would look at your kind of the arc of your career and how you built it and how it went about it, what do you think was the thing that kind of you would say like kind of defines what you do, or that you would say is like the reason why it matters to you that you should do it?
Why should I do that? You mean?
Like, what makes you make music? Like, who is it?
Actually,
what is it?
Few reasons maybe. First, you can call it almost. It almost comes to the level of instinct. If you don't play guitar a few days, something's happening. You feel something's wrong. It's something like you don't eat for a longer time. The same with concerts. If I don't have concerts for a longer time, it's something similar.
Yeah.
So that's one reason, probably. Another reason, it's very connected. That I think I've those moments when you release an album or have a concert or meet people that become your friends after the concerts or before the concerts, they seem like the most meaningful in life. Yeah, really strong experiences and a lot of warmth, a lot of love from people, and I really enjoy those moments, and it seems they give a lot of sense, a lot of meaning to everything that's happening. And what else can I think? I don't know. It seems more that it's impossible to do the other way now.
Yeah. We were talking before we swithed the cameras on. We were talking about Bob Dylan, and we were discussing our favorite albums and all of those things. And one of the things we were discussing was the early stuff, which like a lot more of the protest songs. Is maybe I'm going to throw it out there, but this is obviously a time when, especially here in Europe, we're really seeing this rise of these right-wing ideologies, and we're seeing some quite terrifying things happening. We're seeing obviously the protests against the terrible racism and institutional ways of racism that have treated black people so badly and people of color so badly, refugees and immigrants. And I think one of the things for me about folk music and what drew me to it was the idea of protest, the idea of presenting it. And I don't necessarily just mean that it has to be political, but there's this idea, being kind is political act in some ways. But how do you see that kind of, is that something that, Bob Dylan also gave to you, or was it more like, do you see that a different way?
You mean Bob Dylan exactly? Or
well, so for me, Bob Dylan was kind of what woke me up to the idea of like song being more than just some nice song, but it can really mean something like not just the politics, but like saying something about life and humanity.
It's a very good question, because what it means to be political, what it means to say something in broad sense, even metaphysical sense, and things like that. Actually, I don't know who gave me this, but it seems that I think I asked myself this question, and the answer was that probably from the childhood I was searching the thing that I was searching in any kind of art, literature, music, and even painting or cinema, was something that you told. Those things, even if the authors didn't have that in mind so strictly. But what about Bob Dylan? I think the thing I like the most about Bob Dylan is that his independence, probably. His independence and moving forward always. His political in the narrowest sense. This period was a period when he was moving forward, but when he understood that it becomes some kind of conservative thing, that left-wing songs or things like that, he moved forward, and I think I support him. Because being political in that oppositional sense or emancipative sense, it doesn't mean that you have to stand in the street with slogans. It can mean that you can show an example, you can talk about examples, you can sing about examples, and somehow broaden the. It sounds very bombastic, but broaden the consciousness with lyrics, with music, and things like that. But the main answer is that it's almost the only thing that I search in any kind of art. The thing that you told.
I guess what appealed to me first was this kind of very left-wing politics and that kind of thing. I grew up in Margaret Thatcher's Britain, so there was this kind of very big scene especially in the folk scene of the socialist side of things. But as what I really meant was that as I kind of developed, it was more about like being able to speak to a song, use a song to speak about a certain thing that doesn't necessarily just conform to the 3-minute pop song thing. And I think from reading translations of your lyrics, I get that real sense that's also something fantastic. That you
Also, I would say that's kind of natural. It became natural that there was no specific author or musician that opened my mind. It seems like from early days, I only moved to that side. Wanted that from literature, music, and any other arts.
I think those things can. I think things can definitely like kind of fit your character, and then your character also fits them, and you gradually grow into it like that. How is? I mean, can I ask how it is in Lithuania? Here, obviously in Slovakia, we have some of the issues with very right-wing parties gained quite a bit of power, and it's kind of going up and down. But on the other side, there's also many things that have opened up, and for instance, our Pride March here every year is getting bigger and bigger, and
the same in Lithuania, I would say. Well, it's very difficult question about political situation in Lithuania, because the main thing I see in the last 10-15 years is the crisis of any ideologies. So it's very difficult to divide right wing and left wing in the old sense, at least. And for example, now is the leading party. Well, it has some right wing elements. Right wing, I mean, almost some neo-fascist elements. Some very conservative elements. It also has, but it's still kind of populist. It's still kind of some liberal aspects. So it's very, very mixed. And the worst thing that it tries to invade in private life of individual and communities, and tries to control people. Like that, the thing I really hate, and that's the thing that I really respect in if musicians try to fight against that, because it was always like that from 50s, 60s, from Woody Guthrie to nowadays. So political situation is very weird in Lithuania, and not so easy to explain, for example, as in Poland or in Hungary, where there is a very conservative ruling party, leading party, and opposition. Of course, opposition can be divided, but that doesn't matter. In Lithuania, it's not like that. In Lithuania, I think it's provincial and kind of conservative country itself. And also kind of corrupted. And also people in the government are not so smart, because I think, for example, Viktor Orban, I really hate him and all his politics, but the worst thing, I think he's a smart guy. He knows what
understands what he's doing.
So the thing about Lithuanian those leading parties is that they are ruled by extremely stupid people. That's why the ideologies are not actualized.
I see. So it's not like a fully developed
exactly.
ideology, whereas with Urban, he knows what he's doing.
Those people are very stupid. That's the thing. Maybe that's the good thing.
Well, sometimes I think that's probably the only qualification for being a politician. But when you travel around, obviously Lithuania is a European country, and when you travel around Europe, do you sort of experience the kind of culture in a different way? Because, for instance, I know that Lithuania is a former Soviet bloc country, like Slovakia is, and when I go back to the West, it seems like there are just some cultural differences that are still really like quite strong.
There are quite many phobias, I would say, in Eastern Bloc. There are many phobias. People are more conservative, I would say. People are less self-independent. People are less self-confident. People in broad sense. They're afraid to go forward, it seems. Much more people are afraid to go forward than in the West. And also in everyday life you can experience that. There are some phobias against each other. That's a sad thing, but I hope it's changing a bit. In Lithuania, at least, it gets more and more liberal, more tolerant, maybe, but it could be much faster.
Yeah, I think that's true here. That's one really interesting thing is that Slovakia is still like Lithuania, we're still relatively young countries, and
there was a lot of upheaval and a lot of change, and for some older people, their lives didn't get better. You know, even after all of the changes, things didn't get better, things didn't improve, and so they sort of have this nostalgia almost for the times when things were actually really bad, but they knew where they stood, they knew what was happening. And I think that's what we're really seeing is obviously the younger generation is more outward looking to perhaps the rest of the world, but there is still like a generation of people who holding those very old ideas and somehow that keeps the power balance in a different way. And it's almost like this kind of tyranny of low expectations. You know, they don't expect to things that really can be better. They're just, well, it's never been better for me, so I'll just keep these guys because I don't want to see something new. Is it similar in Lithuania?
Yeah, exactly. But also, interesting thing that I don't see a huge generational gap. On one hand, it seems that younger people go abroad and see different cultures and they could be more open-minded, but it doesn't happen necessarily. That's the sad point, because on one hand you could think that okay, Lithuania is a young country, and in the future it would be much more open-minded. People are gonna be more open-minded. But on the other hand, I think it's also depends on its geopolitical situation and just geographical situation. That it's possible that it won't change so much. It still can be quiet land, quiet dark land where nothing happens. It's not like that. Of course, it's not like that absolutely. But I think sometimes it's better to talk in such topics, but on such topics in a bit caricaturic way.
Yeah. Yeah, I still try to be, you know, very optimistic. The state of things scares me, and you know, I see especially with my home country in Britain and the politics of the US, where I've spent the last few years of my life living there before I moved to Slovakia, and it's terrifying to see that. But I still somehow hope that some of the things that I see and some of the things that I see in art happening and musicians doing and maybe I'm just living in a bubble, but there is a sense of like, it's these old ideas, they're kind of fighting their last, and they're fighting their hardest because it's really the last time that they will really get it. But then I also see that many young people are totally dissatisfied with the systems and with the politics, and so they are turning to these easy shortcuts like neo-fascism and neo-Nazi groups are rising because the politicians have found it convenient to blame Roma or to blame refugees or something like that. So, but I think I can remain optimistic and hopefully.
Yeah, I think the thing that you said that maybe it's the last. I don't remember. There was a good Russian expression, but okay, when somebody is dying, it's like his last conversion, something like that.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah,
too.
I really hope so. But then I thought, when I was living in the US, I really thought that when after Obama got elected, I really thought, okay, that's the end of this old school Republican style. And then Trump came, and I was like, how wrong could I possibly be? So I'm not going to make any money as a prophet.
Yeah, actually, this topic is very interesting for me, because what you told about Barack Obama time, and how you felt, it's like it still belongs to the paradigm of history as a progress. Yeah. And it's very natural for us people from Europe to think in that way, and we think it's gonna go forward. People gonna be they're gonna be more emancipation and things like that. But sometimes things stops, and who knows where it's gonna go. And I think it's very connected with what we're doing with music, with arts, because with music, it's that in from 16th until the end of 20th century, people were thinking through the progress perspective. Like it's every new style is appearing, it's changing previous style.
Yeah.
And also in last 20 years maybe something like stopped. It doesn't mean that new original musicians disappeared. No. But it means that no extreme transformations are happening.
Right.
No extreme transformation is huge. New like styles and things like that.
Yeah.
I think those things are very connected. Political like stagnation, artistic stagnation, and stagnation of ideas. Of things like that.
Yeah, I think that's true to some extent. I was trying to think about, obviously in terms of classical music, there was the great kind of revolution of the 20th century into serialism and minimalism and atonality and all of those things. And then, of course, there was the advent of jazz, which was a completely revolutionary music driven by, obviously, Black American artists, and then before that, in Britain there was the sort of pop revolution with like the Beatles and Stones, but they were drawing on things that came as also the precursors to jazz, really, like the old blues and all of this kind of stuff. And so there are these kind of revolutionary moments in time, and the only real revolution I think now personally, and I really see it in what I enjoy and what I'm finding stimulating as a musician, I see it in electronic music. This is really, for me, the frontier. Despite the fact that I'm a guitar player and I sing and play acoustic instruments, I really think that some of the most interesting work is being done in electronic music. But I also think that these, many of the new technologies have caused a revolution. Things like YouTube and the accessibility to the technology for, if you were the Rolling Stones, you had to go to Abbey Road and pay thousands and thousands of pounds to get your record, or someone had to really support you. And now I can buy for €20 some recorder and make music and put it on YouTube for very, very cheaply. So there are some kinds of revolutions happening, but I think you're right in terms of like really transformational events in music or in art. It's not quite there yet.
Yeah, this topic about what internet gave to creativity, I think it's still very unclear. Because on one hand, so many doors were opened. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to pay money for some guy who would say we don't need your music. You can do everything yourself, and that's fantastic. That's really a fantastic thing. On the other hand, what happens, like music somehow disappears. It's like internet is like a huge swamp where good things cannot be recognized, and it's possible that they will be lost. So it's very interesting what's happening with that. What will be gonna happen, because this is something very new. Nothing similar had been.
It's very interesting, and I think music has become very, very commoditized as well. And once again, the record companies perhaps have lost some of their direct influence over artists. However, the streaming companies now are exerting this same thing, and they're making the deals with the record companies, not really with the artists so much. So and then it's very difficult for people like us as independent musicians to really make to really break through to that.
But I have a hope in one thing that's tied with Corona virus. People were talking that live music is not important anymore and things like that. But when it stopped, there were only live streams. Like I thought I was talking about that with people like in this month when everything reopened in Lithuania, and everyone told that we hadn't watched any live streams. We just missed good live music, to go to the event and listen to live instruments. Yeah, so that's I think a very positive thing. People can understand that it's unchangeable, probably.
Yeah. On the one hand, for many musicians, it's kind of been some kind of a lifeline, especially for people who really lost a lot of money because their tours were cancelled and all of this kind of thing. So live streaming events was a way for them to try to keep some kind of income, but it's not the same. I've watched quite a number of the live streams and I enjoy it, but it's more like watching a YouTube video. It's not like the interaction and the connection, especially for the performer. You don't feel that feedback from the audience. You don't, and then you don't. It's something how an audience elevates you as a performer, and you elevate the audience, and everybody gets something mutually beneficial.
Because concert is relation. Absolutely. You give something to audience, but you can't give if you don't get some energy and attention, and like it's common event.
I mean, it has to be social, and so I hope that you're right. Unfortunately, in some places, for instance in Britain, the government hasn't paid any attention to the arts, and there are many venues who are really struggling. There are many musicians who are really struggling because the value in the government doesn't see the value. But I really hope it will start opening up more now, because I've really missed performing, and I'm really happy that because we're going to be playing tonight, so I'm really happy that we can finally get to do this concerts together. And
me too, but I really hope for my friends in UK who are musicians and still can't play. I hope for them.
Absolutely.
they would be able to play live soon.
I really hope so. And it's been such a challenge for even the big festivals. They're really suffering from the whole Corona thing. But it is important. Kindness and understanding and love and care is so much, for me, so much better expressed in art and in music and in what you give to somebody through a performance than almost anything. So I hope that it will improve.
I hope so too.
Well, I guess we better get ready for our concert.
Okay, we could talk more and more. I think that's only the beginning.
Definitely.
But it will be only between us.
So thanks very much.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Šalis be dalis be vietos. Tik nesakykit man prieit arčiau, tik tai neliepkit įsikib stipriau, manojoj tuštumoj užtenka paslapčių. Balsą girdžiu, jis vienišas, kalba juo niekas, bet sakau, gal tu prieik arčiau, pabūk šalia ir įsisup šilčiau, manojui tuštumoj jau bloga nuo minčių.